Well, Derral Eves, thank you so much for being here with us today. How are you?
Doing great, doing great.
Well, I'm glad to have you here to talk about the next chapter, the next season of The Chosen, which hard to believe is right around the corner. Season four was such a stunning success. We've just wrapped, or y'all have just wrapped filming for season five, which won't be coming out for a little bit. We've got a little bit of a wait. But tell us a little bit about how you're feeling to be coming off the heels of such a successful season and heading into yet another season, season five of The Chosen.
Trey, it's pretty surreal, like every day to think about where we're at, based on just 7 years ago when it was just an idea, and it's just been a beauty to watch, the content really impact lives across the world in so many different ways. And when Dallas and I first started the show, we had a huge passion to really showcase an authentic Jesus, like a Jesus that wasn't just stoic and just kind of a stained glass window Jesus, but someone that had real friends and family, and you could see him in relationships, and you could see the full side of who he is and how to bring in humor and also really important messages. And so for us, just seeing that played out and seeing how the writing's improved, how the production design's improved, how the acting's improved, I think we've really settled into excellence. I really do. And I think season four, the reason why it was so successful was it just we're hitting on all cylinders, and the actors have a really good grasp of who their character is, and the writing has just been phenomenal. And that leads to amazing storytelling, which that's been the goal from day one. But I can say it's been beautiful to watch just how the evolution of the content has gotten better, but also how the stories are more meaningful now. Like
Mm.
when I really pulled that in, I'm like, wow, that is so amazing, to get that context of these stories that I never considered before. It's like, that I made this comment before, but I've always read Jesus wept in the Bible, and I never really thought, well, what was he crying about? What was he considering? What was he doing? What was going on in his mind? And, the plausibility of what our writers wrote about is like, here's the moments, he's seeing the writing on the wall. He's seeing where, things are being put into place, and he can see that, his followers are not ready yet, and it's just this weight of his mission and his goal just kind of rested on his shoulders. And it's just beautiful to watch these things. And then too, it gives me context, to go deeper into the Bible and really, just see it in a different light.
Yeah. For people who don't know, Derral, you're one of the executive producers and you're also the chief strategy officer for The Chosen, social media, YouTube. These are things that you were familiar with long before your work with The Chosen. It's something
Right.
you've built your career on, as far as strategy and marketing and promotion and all of that content creation and everything that comes with it. And I know that obviously The Chosen has been around now for years and has been with us through many different cultural seasons, some difficult and some not as difficult. And we're heading into what is certain to be a tumultuous election season.
Yep.
Season five is going to be premiering likely when we've inaugurated a new president. Talk a bit about how The Chosen has resonated despite America in particular, but other countries around the world where people are watching this, going through some pretty tough things culturally, and this show really speaking to those things
Yeah.
indirectly and sometimes even directly.
Well, Trey, from the first season, I realized there's a lot of similarities of first century Judea and the world that we're living in today. There's oppression, there's racism, there's hatred, there's infighting, there's wars, rumors of wars. There's a lot of starvation, both physical and spiritual. So you have all these similarities that are there. And what was beautiful was the end of the first season of where Jesus actually started his ministry and who he actually, revealed himself as the Messiah. And seeing kind of those moments, the woman at the well and going into Samaria and starting his ministry, It brings me a lot of hope because what was needed then in first century of what Jesus taught is what we need today. And there's not a lot of people that are just craving just a brand new, just to get the Bible. But if this could help them start learning the stories and start learning about the man and going deeper into the meaning of his message, I believe that's going to get them to want to go to the Bible and get in on their knees and go to church. I think that's going to be that mechanism to be more curious. Well, was that really in the Bible? Was it not? Then you go into it and start to really hear the word because we're just a TV show and the Bible's the Bible, and for us, we just want to let the world see an authentic Jesus, and the Spirit will lead them where they need to go.
Yeah. You know, telling the story of the Bible can be really difficult at certain times to especially to get the nuances of it right. And that's something that I know Dallas and you and so many others associated with The Chosen have worked really hard to be as true to the biblical narrative, obviously, as you possibly can be. You have to fill in some here and
Yeah.
there because there are details that are just obviously not written out in the Bible. But season five, something that I'm looking forward to seeing is the story of Judas really progress. But I know that's also going to be really difficult. It's hard to see the story of Judas progress. Talk a little bit about that because obviously, spoiler alert, we know what's going to happen with Judas.
Yeah, we do.
But those are difficult things to film. So talk about that.
Well, let me tell you about. I want to address it about when we decided to go to Jerusalem and do some preparatory work. We were going to shoot some videos to let people know, and Dallas just basically wrote some of the scripts for season one. Got with the writers, and they did the whole retreat, and they were about, I don't know, 80% there. And when we were there at the Holy Land, it just changed everything. It became more real. Walking where the disciples walked, going to the Sermon on the Mount of where it could have been and reading the Sermon on the Mount. It just was beautiful. And we just went to Magdala. They just unearthed the first century synagogue that was there. And we were just walking on the mosaic tiles. And it was a moment where Dallas kind of just got hit to the core of how important these people that he's writing about was to Jesus, how these disciples were really his friends and he loved them so much. And he needed to rethink a few things. And I think God was speaking to him specifically, not only on that day, but other days of getting it right. And I asked him very specifically about that event and about certain things. And we had a conversation about Judas, and I've always felt like Judas was misportrayed. He was a follower, a devout follower. Jesus chose him, and he wasn't really portrayed right in history, and so it's really fun to see what could have been plausible and a different path because I truly do believe it sets it up in season four that Judas is a true believer and he believes that the Messiah is going to do this, which he doesn't understand what the Messiah is all about. And it's just a misinterpretation on his part, and it causes
Mm.
him to go down an interesting uh, path. And that's what I love about the show is, the writers get to talk about plausibility. What could have been plausible leading up to this moment? What could have been plausible, going down this path? And what are the outcomes? And I think that's what we have in everyday life. We make choices and then there's outcomes and we get to see things differently through the outcomes from our choices. And so just having the writing there and then going into the Holy Week is beautiful, but I think we're going to see humanity at its finest and at its worst. And I think we're going to see and have a deeper appreciation for the grace of Jesus Christ. Like I just know it because I know the story and I know where everything's going. And I know it's in the Bible too, but it's with characters that we've been able to love and been developed over 7 seasons. We get to see it
Yeah.
play out and their character arcs. And you're going to see forgiveness like you've never seen before. You're going to see love like you've never seen before, but you're going to see hatred like you've never seen before.
Hmm. For good reason, we talk about how the show has impacted so many people who have viewed it and watched the series from season one to now through season four. But I want to ask what it's been like on the other side of the camera for you, the cast, the crew. How has the series, creating this series, bringing the Bible to life in a cinematic way. How has that challenged and maybe even changed your perspective of Scripture and maybe even the character of God?
Yeah. So Dallas and I laugh that we've been crawling on glass for about 7 years. And it feels that way. It feels very brutal. And I don't mean that in a bad connotation because we're willing to do this. But it's been the most difficult project I've ever worked on. There's not even a close second, like not even a close second. And there's a lot of opposition too, instead of the support that you'd think that'd be naturally there. And so we've always found these struggle moments. And with these struggle moments, there's something that Dallas and I really love, which is the story of Moses, and we relate a few things to it. And one is Red Sea moments where you know Moses was taking the children of Israel and they left their oppressors and went to the Red Sea, and the armies of of Egypt were coming to destroy Israel, and they were kind of stuck, and they just needed a miracle. Well, that's what the show's always been: is we've been able to be our backs against the wall, and then God opens up that path. God opens up, where we can safely go or we need to go. But he waits just at that moment where we're just truly desperate. Like we're just like, okay, we don't know how it's going to work. We just have these Red Sea moments. But it was what happened next, which is beautiful, which is the children of Israel went out, and there are about 1 million of them that were following Moses at that time. And just to feed that number of people is just very difficult, right? And so that's where God provided manna. And for us, we felt like we were always on the manna marketing program, where God only gave us exactly what we needed for that day, and we couldn't save any of it because it would rot. It was just like we just got what we needed at the time, and that has been a true blessing for us. Is God always gave us what we needed or who we needed to get what we needed.
Hmm.
Um, and that's happened time and time again. And it gave me personally a deeper appreciation for how intentional God really is, and how well he hears us, and how well he knows us, and how well he knows when we need to suffer a little bit more. And that just makes everything a lot more sweeter. It just does. And it's been beautiful. I won't over exaggerate this, but it's just been beautiful to take something and put it out for the world to receive, but also to reject. And it's similar to the message that Jesus did 2,000 years ago. It's that same message that we're trying to get out to the world in a different medium, right?
Yeah.
But what's been beautiful to watch is someone feeling nothing start to fill and start to believe and then convert. Like we've seen that over and over and over again, where they're discovering who this Jesus is and what it means to them. And it's just beautiful to watch. It's beautiful to be a part of this.
Hmm.
And I can say this alone, for us, it's not about one person, it's about God assembling who he needs to this project, what it needs to become.
Yeah. I don't want to give the devil more credit than he's due, but I also I also want to ask if do you think some of the opposition that you have faced, that the chosen has faced, is the result of spiritual warfare? Has that played into some of the creation
Yes.
of this show?
Yeah. So the first thing in audience development, that's what I do. I develop audiences. We did the vision, and we was starting to share, hey, we're gonna do a TV show, and we used Dallas's short film, The Shepherd, as that piece of content to go out from the world. And there was someone that took that and made a 2-hour documentary of how Dallas is the Antichrist, and how evil that content really is. And I just smiled and I called Dallas up. I says, "We won. We got it." And he goes, "What are you talking about?" I says, "We got our first hater. We got to have our first hater to really do this and to do it right. Because there has to be, that struggle for any brand to really go. You have to have someone that doesn't like it, and then it brings in the people that love it. That's kind of the whole mechanism. But you brought up a point. Has there been, different types of opposition by that don't want this to happen? And I would say yes. Like that has happened every single day. The welfare is there. I'm always praying for our crew and our team, but more importantly, Dallas and Amanda and our writers, because we need to endure. We need to be able to handle it. And there's been breaking points, Trey. I'm not gonna deny there's been breaking points on my part, where I get frustrated and it's hard. It's hard for me and my family. And there's been breaking points on Dallas's part too. And it's been beautiful to watch where he might be breaking on one time is probably the strongest that I've been, and I can strengthen him. And then when I'm about ready to break, he and Amanda and the team, strengthens me. And so God's always provided what we needed, and ultimately the attacks are real, the fiery darts are real. Anyone that wants to do any research on that, I mean, there's thousands of videos of you know, how evil the project is. But for us, we just look at the impact that we're having, and we're not a church, we're a TV show, and we're not the Bible. The Bible's the Bible, but we're documenting, what life could have been like 2,000 years ago when Jesus taught the most important things that the world needs today.
Yeah. As we're closing out the conversation, for people who are fans of the show, maybe even people who are not fans of the show, but are believers, and they want to know how they can pray for you, for Dallas, for the cast and crew as you're heading into season 5, what would you say? What are the things that people can be praying for?
I think praying for our protection from ourselves. I
Mm.
think that is beautiful. I think as anything has success, we start to see the world differently. And God's um, kind of selected people that Dallas and I, we don't really care what the world thinks about us. We don't, but things can change. And we just want to keep it pure for the intent of what we started. And I think too, secondarily, the impact, we're trying to get this translated into 600 languages because we want the impact to be global, not just in the United States. That's not our heart and not our desire. And so God's inspiring people to be a part of the project to help us get it translated to where it needs to be, which is great. We have an amazing foundation, Come and See Foundation, that has spearheaded all this of getting it out globally, which we can't do it with just on our own. It's just been beautiful to be a part of this, beautiful to watch. But I would say those prayers of getting this out, because as people are, different people are being touched, and this is more the younger generation starting to see this, and I think I truly do believe that there'll be another Jesus revolution of followers coming in and hearing His word and helping the world, you know, get to that next stage of really understanding who Jesus really is.
Yeah, yeah, amen. It couldn't come at a better time, right? I think
Yeah,
so many people are searching, and Jesus is the only eternal answer. So I'm grateful for
amen.
the work that y'all are doing, Derral. Thank you so much for joining us and talking a bit about what's to come with The Chosen.
Thanks, Trey.